Have you ever held a book and felt its weight? Not just the weight of the paper and the ink, but the weight of the stories inside. That is how I felt about the Bible for a long time. It sat on my shelf, a big book full of important words. I knew many of its stories. I had heard about David and Goliath. I knew about the birth of Jesus, but I had never read it all. I had never started on page 1 and read until the very last word. I felt a gentle nudge in my heart. It was a simple question. Why not? Why not read the whole story that God wanted to tell? So I decided to begin. It was not for a class. It was not for a sermon. It was just for me. I wanted to know God better. I believed His words were a love letter to us. And who reads only parts of a love letter? You read every word. You want to understand the heart of the person who wrote it. I wanted to see the big picture. I wanted to see how all the small stories fit together to make one giant, beautiful story. This was my reason. It was simple. I was thirsty, and I believed this book held the water I needed. My journey began with a quiet prayer and the turn of a single page. The idea felt so big at first. Reading the entire Bible can seem like climbing a very tall mountain. You look up and wonder if you will ever reach the top. But I learned that you don't climb a mountain in one giant leap. You take one step at a time. My plan was to read a little bit each day, just a few chapters. Some days the reading was easy, other days it was a little harder. But every day I opened the book. I trusted that God had something to show me, even if it was just one small thought or one simple truth. The journey was not about speed, it was about spending time with the author. This decision was a quiet one, made in the early morning hours. It was a promise I made to myself and to God. I would walk through this book, I would listen, I would be patient. I wanted to hear the single melody that runs through all of 66 books. I wanted to see the face of Jesus not just in the New Testament, but in the old stories too. I believed He was there, waiting to be found in the history, the poems, and the prophecies. And so, with hope in my heart, I started my epic journey, one word at a time from the very beginning. The first book is called Genesis. It means the beginning, and that is exactly what it was. In the beginning, God spoke, and the world was made. He made light, He made the sky and the sea, He made the animals and the trees. It was all so good. Reading those first pages felt like watching a master artist paint a beautiful picture. The words were simple, but the actions were powerful. I could almost feel the warmth of the first sun. I could almost hear the sound of the first birds. It made me feel small, but in a good way. It showed me how big and creative our God is. He is a God of order and beauty. Then the story turned. It became about people. It became about Adam and Eve. God gave them a perfect home. He gave them everything they needed. He gave them His friendship. But they made a wrong choice. They listened to a lie instead of listening to God. This part of the story made me feel sad. It was the first heartbreak in the world. I saw how one bad choice could change everything. But even in that sad moment, I saw something amazing. God did not leave them. He made a promise. He promised that one day someone would come to fix what was broken. That tiny promise, right at the beginning, was a flicker of hope. As I kept reading, I met more people. I read about Noah and the great flood. I imagined him building that huge boat while everyone else laughed. It taught me about faith. It taught me that sometimes God asks us to do things that don't make sense to others. I read about Abraham, who was asked to leave his home and go to a new land. He trusted God, even when he did not know where he was going. These stories were not just old tales. They felt real. They showed me that people long ago had the same fears and the same hopes that we have today. They were just like us. The first part of the Bible was full of big, dramatic events. There were families and fights. There were promises and problems. Sometimes the stories were confusing. There were long lists of names and laws that were hard to understand. But I tried to keep reading slowly. I looked for God in every story. I saw His power in the parting of the Red Sea. I saw His patience with the wandering people of Israel. I learned that God is always working, even when people make mistakes. He is always faithful, even when His people are not. The beginning of the book showed me a God who is holy, powerful, and full of patient love. As my journey continued, I walked through books of history, poetry, and wisdom. I found so many treasures. One of my favorite stories is about a young man named Joseph. His own brothers sold him as a slave. He was sent to prison for something he did not do. Everything in his life went wrong. But Joseph never stopped trusting God. And in the end, God used all those bad things to do something wonderful. Joseph saved his family and many other people from a great famine. His story taught me a powerful lesson. What other people mean for evil, God can use for good. This gives me so much hope. Then I discovered the Book of Psalms. This book became a dear friend to me. It is like a collection of songs and prayers. The writers were so honest with God. When they were happy, they sang praises. When they were sad, they cried out to Him. When they were scared, they told Him. David, one of the main writers, showed me that it is okay to bring all our feelings to God, the happy ones, the sad ones, and even the angry ones. The Psalms taught me how to pray with an open and honest heart. They gave me words when I could not find my own. They are a treasure for anyone who wants to talk to God. Another story that touched my heart was the story of Ruth. She was not from the family of God, but she chose to follow Him. She showed incredible loyalty and love to her mother-in-law, Naomi. She left her home and her people to stay with Naomi and worship her God. It is a quiet story about simple love and faithfulness, but God saw her heart. He blessed her in amazing ways. She became part of the family line of King David and eventually of Jesus Himself. Ruth's story shows that God welcomes everyone. It does not matter where you come from, it only matters that you turn to Him. Of course, the greatest treasure was reading the story of Jesus in the Gospels. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John each tell the story of His life. Reading them one after another painted a complete picture of Him. I saw His compassion for the sick. I saw His patience with His disciples. I heard His simple teachings about love and forgiveness. I walked with Him to the cross and my heart ached. But then, I read about the empty tomb. He is alive. This is the center of the whole Bible. It is the greatest news the world has ever heard. Everything I had read before pointed to this moment. Everything I read after was because of it. Finishing the last page of the Bible was not like finishing any other book. There was no loud celebration. It was a quiet, peaceful moment. I closed the book and just sat there for a while. I felt a sense of accomplishment, yes, but it was more than that. I felt a sense of peace. I had seen the whole story. I had seen God's incredible, unstoppable love from the first page to the last. From the Garden of Eden to the new city of Jerusalem, one thing was clear. God loves His people and wants to be with them. This simple truth changed from something I knew in my head to something I felt deep in my heart. The journey was not always easy. There were challenges. Some books, like Leviticus or Numbers, were filled with laws and details that were hard to get through. My mind would wander. Some days I was too tired to read, but I learned to be patient with myself. If I missed a day, I just started again the next. The biggest surprise was how connected the whole book is. A promise made in Genesis is fulfilled in the Gospels. A prophecy in Isaiah comes true in Revelation. It is not just a collection of random stories, it is one story, beautifully woven together by one author. Seeing those connections was like finding hidden jewels. This journey changed how I think about life. Before, I might see a problem and feel hopeless. Now I remember Joseph. I remember that God can turn bad situations into good ones. When I feel like my prayers are not being heard, I remember the Psalms. I know it is okay to be honest with God about how I feel. When I feel small or unimportant, I remember Ruth. I know that God sees me and that my simple acts of love matter to Him. The Bible is not just a history book, it is a guide for living. It gives me a new lens to see the world, a lens of hope and grace. If you are thinking about reading the Bible, I want to encourage you. Do not be afraid of its size. Do not worry if you do not understand everything at first. Just start. Open to page 1 and read a little each day. Let God speak to you through His words. It is a journey worth taking. It will comfort you. It will challenge you. It will change you. It is more than just reading a book. It is about meeting the God who wrote it. And He is waiting to meet with you on every single page. Take that first step. You will be so glad you did.